I made a visit to the Audie Murphy American Cop Museum in Greenville, Texas. Interesting place to visit. During the Second World War, the American Armed Forces totaled some 16 million plus personnel by the end of the war, including 11 million in the American Army. But one man became the most decorated soldier in that period, Audie Murphy. Later becoming a film star, but he's perhaps best known for his activities during World War II. He is a true American hero for the operations he carried out. But in my eyes, he's a hero because, for a start, he had to fight to get into the armed forces. The Marines rejected him. I think the Navy rejected him. The paratroopers rejected him because of his size and he was underweight. But eventually, I think his sister helped him with his age, and he made it into the US Army. He had a tough upbringing in Texas. His father finally gave up the ghost and left his family, and his mother died when he was 16, so he was left to look after the siblings. But he always wanted to join the military. And you can see from some of these early pictures, there's particularly this one, how proud he is standing there. You can see how proud he is to be in the US Army at last. So this is an interesting museum. Features not just artifacts about Audie Murphy, but other American heroes from Texas of the period. Of course, Audie Murphy was the most decorated American soldier, including winning the Medal of Honor, the highest decoration that the American government can bestow upon a soldier. And particularly, although he was involved in many actions, there was two specifically that he became famous for. One was when, with another soldier, they were attacking German machine gun nests, and the Germans put up a white flag, which is always seen as the international sign of surrender. And as his friend got up, he was shot down. That enraged Murphy, who then attacked them with grenades in his carbine, killing them. He then picked up their heavy MG-42 machine gun and started attacking the other German nests. So that's one famous situation he's remembered for. And the second was later when the Americans were being confronted in France by German tanks and infantry, and an American tank destroyer was destroyed and the crew had to bail out, and Murphy climbed on the tank and used the 50 caliber machine gun to attack the oncoming forces, and that, I think, is the operation where he won the Medal of Honor, and he was only 19 at the time. And then Jimmy Cagney saw that picture of him in Life magazine and asked him to come to Hollywood. Tragically, he died at a very young age, 46, in 1971, in a plane crash. But we can see in the museum here all sorts of artifacts they have as well. They also, perhaps were not shown in the video, some of these weapons, etc. And then after the war, he went into the film business as well, mainly in westerns at the time. And these are some of the letters, etc. So they've laid this out really well. So if you're ever passing Greenville, Texas, worth calling in. These are some of these films. By far, in my opinion, his best was The Red Badge of Courage. He was the ideal choice for that. I think that was made in 1951 by John Huston, the director, and Murphy starred in that. And even in that, he looks like a 17-year-old kid, basically. He's the classic example of underestimating somebody by how they look, because although he was this baby-faced guy, he was a real tough nut at the end of the day. He really was. And he certainly deserved the title of American hero for the actions he took place. And as I say, for the way he led his men, basically. He made sure he was at the front and looking after their well-being. He also wrote a book, To Hell and Back, and then made the film about it, which we're looking at the poster there. I'm actually halfway reading through that book at the moment. That's well worth getting if you haven't read that, if you're interested in World War II. It's a gritty, tough, no-nonsense account of the American GI fighting in Italy and then in France during World War II. And it's well worth reading that in the style that Murphy has written it. Probably a classic in its own way, really. Later on, then, he was also involved in music and poetry. He had his demons as well. He suffered from PTSD, following all, frankly, the men he killed during the war, which I think amounted into hundreds at the end. So he was a troubled man later in his life. I think he also had some financial difficulties at times, that he wouldn't resort to doing advertisements for tobacco or alcohol because he thought that was a better influence on the youth of America. So he really was a true patriot. Now, outside in the grounds of the museum, they've erected a very large, oversized statue to Audie Murphy, and that shows him in one of his famous actions carrying the MG 42 machine gun. It's appropriate. It's appropriate because although he was small in stature, he was a giant amongst men. In a period of history when many men were giants in what they had to achieve fighting during the Second World War. He's buried now in the Arlington Cemetery, and I believe his grave is the second most visited after President John F. Kennedy's. So, to a younger generation, they've built a very good remembrance here, not just to him, but to other veterans who died in that conflict and other conflicts like Korea and Vietnam. And here he is, leading the charge with his German MG 42 machine gun. So Audie Murphy, true American hero, and that word's bandied about a lot these days, but he really was. Rest in peace.